here. Thank you.
Yes.
Go ahead and raise your right hand. Oh, over here. Doesn't matter. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are about to provide is true and accurate?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Jorde?
Yes, thank you. Will you state your name, please?
David Gerber.
And Mr. Gerber, do you have land that's being targeted by Summit for their proposed pipeline?
Yes, I do.
And which county is that in?
Kasuth.
And prior to today, did you cause to be filed what's been known as pre-filed testimony with question and answers and then a series of attachments or exhibit that you've submitted to the IUB?
Yes, I did.
And if we were to walk through all of those questions and answers, other than maybe some misspellings or typos, was there any change? Well, would you adopt the same answers that you previously gave, or at least substantially similar answers if we asked you all the same questions again?
I would.
And then other than any typos or minor clerical errors, do you have any material or substantive changes, corrections, or updates?
No.
All right. I would offer Mr. Gerber's pre-filed testimony and attachments.
Are there objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
Seeing no objections, the board will admit.
Thank you. And I will tender Mr. Gerber for cross-exam.
Mr. Taylor?
Thank you. Mr. Gerber, I'm Wally Taylor. I represent the Sierra Club. And can we bring up his KMZ file? Does this map on the screen appear to be your property?
It does.
And it looks like the Summit Pipeline would go across the northern end of your property. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And it looks like on the northwest corner, there's a darker area. Is that a waterway, a wooded area, or what?
Actually, right next to the lighter color there in the northwest, it's a actual start of a creek right there. The field to the north has tile that drains into that, and that's usually got open running water heading to the southwest right through there.
Okay. And what's that dark finger just the south of the pipeline?
That is a waterway.
Okay. And it looks like you've got some tile there.
Yeah, we spent quite a bit of time, effort, and money on pattern tiling that over the last 20 years.
The pipeline looks like it runs parallel to the tile. Is that correct or not?
No, actually, those lines that you see must be combine lines. Those are not actual pattern tile lines.
Okay.
The pattern tile, for the most part, run north and south.
Okay. So in other words, the pipeline does impact your tile.
Yes, about in the middle of the field, it's a little bit of a low spot there, which required quite a bit of tile. But then, as you can see at the eastern tip of that waterway, that long skinny waterway, then it's all downhill to the west towards the creek area there and towards the gravel road. And it continues on down to the southwest there, right towards that particular house.
So do you have any concerns about your drainage tile if the pipeline is constructed?
Objection.
State the objection.
Asked and answered, this witness addresses his concerns about his drain tile system and the investment he's made in it on pages 2 and 4 of his direct testimony.
Mr. Taylor?
I'll go on.
Thank you.
There's a bit of a hump, I guess I would call it, where just before the pipeline exits your property on the west. What is that for? Do you know?
I don't. That's a flat grass field right up until where you can see the lighter orange color there, where the pipeline takes a slight northwesterly turn. So I don't know. There is a little creek in there, but I didn't think that was right at that joint, that turn that you're talking about. So I don't know what that would be about.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this: is this the pipeline route you thought was going through your property, or?
Yeah, no. This is what I thought it was.
Okay. Did you talk to any Summit agents or representatives about the path of that pipeline?
I did. In fact, I actually gave them permission to survey it because we had just come off of windmilling. I've got one windmill on my ground, and I just assumed we would be treated the same as the windmill company. And so I just ignorantly said, yeah, sure, you can go ahead and survey that, not realizing that it was a completely different operation. And obviously I wouldn't do that again if I had it to do over.
Why not?
The windmill people actually don't use eminent domain. They're creating a commodity that we all agree, virtually nobody disagrees with the fact that we need electricity, and you actually get a share in the annual profits. So it's just totally a different model than what this particular project is.
You see, there's a windmill on your property. Is it just one windmill, or is it?
No, not this one. It's about 2.5 miles east of this
okay.
field.
Okay.
I did address this in my written statement about the tile. We were told that the broken tile, that you would have to actually cut through tile to do that line. We were told that would all be put back together, but any of us who have tiled know that's not possible because it would have to be 2 or 3 wet years in a row for you to even know where the tile was broken. We've just come off a year of drought. Year before it was drought, and if the next few are drought, there's no way to tell they're broken until we have it wet again. So they would have to come back perhaps 5 years later and fix a broken tile, and I'm not sure they're prepared to do that.
It looks like there is some sort of structure just northeast of your property. What is that?
Yeah, that's there are actually 2 homes there. If you were to slide it to the left, you could see that there's that home, and then there's a home even a little bit farther east on the south side of the road.
Okay. So where do you live?
I actually live about 7 miles southeast of this farm.
Okay. How far would the nearest emergency management personnel be?
It would be Algona, and I've talked to them, and as of 2 or 3, I haven't talked to them within the last 2 or 3 months, and at that point, they had no plan in case there was a pipeline rupture. And you can see that pipeline is laid out pretty close to that waterway, and that waterway drains to the west. It's downhill, and it actually drains down to that house, and then there are other houses along that creek. So if there were, I don't know whether you've seen video of a pipeline rupture. There's one in England that they ruptured on purpose, and it's, well, all those people downhill from that, so to speak, would be in a very bad situation.
Did you talk to any Summit representatives about alternative routes?
I did not. They actually had a map where there was an alternative route where the line was going to go north of that North Gravel Road. It was going to be in the field to the north, but that was just a map that I'd seen that they'd sent in the mail, and then just a week or 2 after that, the line was where it is now. It's been there the whole time.
Do you own the property to the north?
No, I do not.
Did the Summit representatives tell you why they had changed the route?
They did not.
Why have you not signed an easement?
I'm sorry?
Why have you not signed an easement?
Well, you probably have a copy of my CO2 position paper on this, and it is just wrong in every area that you can think of. We were offered a rather substantial sum of money to sign an easement, and my wife and I both said no, and we were talking about it later. What if they came and offered you $1 million? And we both said no to that too, because money just can't make a wrong right. It's just wrong. It's just wrong on so many levels. Can't get insurance for the farm. The property value is down. These homes are downhill from potential rupture, and we know CO2 goes downhill, so it would absolutely engulf those homes if it ruptured right there. And then we've, as people have stated before me, no insurance. I have that in my position paper too. You can't. I'm a Farm Bureau member, and a year ago I talked to my local agent, and he said he didn't know about that. So I wrote a letter to the Des Moines office, which is the headquarters, and they wrote a letter back to me and said it would be handled in a case-by-case basis, and if it was determined that I did something wrong, I don't know how that could be, but if they determined I did something wrong, then there was no possibility of insurance in a situation like that. And I've talked to State Farm; they won't offer any liability insurance in a situation like this. So it's just there are those six areas where it's going to be worth less. It's dangerous. The property value goes down. You can't find insurance. And then we're using eminent domain, which I just am amazed on that. That was originally set up for a government agency to be used for government good. And the reason that's important is because this government agent is involved in an election process. So if they do something rather unpopular or wrong, they know that perhaps in their next election they're going to be out of a job. But in this particular case, the legislature or whomever has given this eminent domain right to a private company making private profits. They are answerable to themselves or to their shareholders. So it's really not eminent domain. I would say it's sort of like legalized theft is what they're doing. And that's why I say we wouldn't take $1 million. It's just wrong. There's no way to justify this being right.
Did the subject of eminent domain come up in your discussions with summit agents?
No. In fact, they were. We haven't really talked to an agent probably in 6 months, but at the time, they very pointedly said, "No, we're not using that term. We don't talk about it. It's not on the table." But that was more than 6 months ago, and then we haven't talked to anyone since. So, no, we didn't talk about eminent domain to them.
So why have you not signed an easement?
Objection.
State the objection.
Asked and answered. It was asked 2 questions ago.
I don't recall asking that question.
Do we have another question, Mr. Taylor?
No.
Thank you. Ms. Ryan.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Gerber. Over here.
Where are we? Oh, there we are.
Thanks. I noticed as you were talking to Mr. Taylor, a few times you referred to this farm. Is it part of a larger, farming operation that you have?
Yes, we bought this about 20 years ago and have been, like I say, got it all pattern tiled. We have probably 5 other fields about that size, a couple of them a little bit bigger, and that's our sum total of our farming operation. We don't have any other jobs, so we rely totally on this for our income. And that's really another reason that this is wrong, is because up there where the tile line is, we've been told that they'll put it back the way it is, and that's never been true on any project like this I've ever seen. Now, the windmill people did a pretty good job, but and they took time to do it, but I've seen so many other jobs where there's just not time to do a proper job of putting all that soil back in the same order that it came out, and it just will not return to productivity. They're not in my lifetime anyway. So, yeah, we've got some other ground besides that.
Okay. And I assume that buying the land and investing in all the time was a pretty significant financial investment?
Yeah, yes, it was. It's about, these days, it's about $1,000 an acre to paddle tile. So that was like $80,000 to do that farm.
And that purchase, I'm guessing, was part of a larger business plan that you have looking at your farming operations as a whole?
It absolutely is. Our son is involved in he also has another job, so he doesn't do a lot. But every fall he shows up to help combine, and this was something we wanted to pass on to our children. And of course, now we probably still will, but it's not going to have the value that it did before.
And how long have you been farming altogether?
Started farming in 1973, so I guess that would be 50 years.
And is it important to you to be able to pass this on to your son?
Yeah, it's very important. That's part of our family legacy, and it's just a shame that this has to come up like this.
When looking at how this parcel fits into your overall business plans, how disruptive is that?
Well, it's actually located about in the middle of where we farm. We have pieces probably 4 or 5 miles north and a little bit west of that, some northeast, and then we live actually about 7 miles southeast. So it's actually sort of central to our operation. We obviously travel by there back and forth all of the time. And it's just unfortunate that that particular piece has to suffer this sort of indignity.
And you mentioned, neighbors who live nearby. Would you feel responsible if there were an incident on your property to harm them?
Well, I would. CO2 is heavier than air, and it just simply acts like water. It drains down, and if you were to slide that up a little bit, you'd see there's maybe 4 other houses right along where those trees are. That's where the creek is, and it actually is downhill, clear down, even below where you slid there. There's and that's the town of Irvington. So depending on how big of a rupture it was, it would actually make it to the town of Irvington. But I just think it's irresponsible to put a possible dangerous pipeline right near those people. It just doesn't seem right.
Have you had any conversations with your son about the pipeline?
Yes, we have. He is in a similar field that my wife and I have. He thinks it's just completely wrong, and was hopeful that we could do something to have that that project stop.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you, Ms. Gruniger.
Thank you, Your Honor. Right over your right shoulder.
All right, sure. Oh, there you are.
Good evening. How are you?
Hi, good. You?
Good. Very good. Your Honor, I'm going to ask staff to pull up a filing from September 21st by Roger Ellingson. It was a letter that he submitted to the docket. And I'll go ahead and talk with the witness, but I wanted to give staff a moment to find that letter. Okay, Mr. Gerber, did you have the opportunity to watch some of the testimony from some of its witnesses earlier?
I actually have not. I was here.
Mr. Gerber, make sure you're talking into the mic, and feel free to move that mic around if you'd like to face Ms. Gruniger.
I think I've got it now. I was here earlier today to testify, and then was told that tomorrow was my day, and then I was called back, and so I did watch some of that this morning, but that's all I've seen is what I saw this morning.
So are you familiar with the company that Summit has employed to make sure that the drainage tile systems are repaired by the name of Ellingson?
No, I'm not.
Earlier in this hearing, Jeremy Ellingson testified about repairing tile, and then the CEO of Ellingson submitted this letter. And if you could read at the very, we'll have to scroll up a little bit, the very last paragraph on the first page.
Starting in recent years?
Starting with our work with landowners.
Okay. Do you want me to read that out loud or just read it?
Go ahead and read it out loud.
Ellingson is now engaging with Summit Carbon Solutions to provide this same individualized service on their proposed carbon capture and storage project. This multi-billion-dollar investment...
I'm sorry, the next paragraph.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
You're right. Our work with landowners as part of this project is not just a one-time effort. Summit Carbon Solutions in Ellingson, as their primary drain tile vendor, will be responsible for any and all drain tile repairs resulting from construction throughout the entire life of the project. That means the company will pay the entirety of these repairs after construction and at any point while the system is operating. The key point is that the costs associated with this work will not ever be the responsibility of the landowner.
If Summit were required to fulfill that commitment, would that address your concern with your tile system?
If they were required, yes. But we all know what happens if Ellingson goes bankrupt or just simply can't do it. Then I guess you're just out of luck. So I would say if this actually comes to be, it will be the first time I've ever heard of that being able to be done, just simply because it takes years for a tile drainage breakage to show up. And with our drought, it might be 10 years. And I would be surprised if in 10 years I could call Ellingson and say, hey, come and fix something. Now, maybe I can.
If the board were to make it a requirement of the permit, would that address your concern?
Well, yes, but you can't really dictate the future. So you can just say that right now this would be our intention, and that would be a good intention to have. So, that would be good.
Your Honor, I would like to admit this letter is IFF Hearing Exhibit 6.
Is there objection?
Yeah, foundation. It's a letter. We're not even sure who the letter is from, I guess. And this witness certainly has no foundation.
Just scroll
to get this
down.
letter in.
No letter.
Yeah. This witness's name is not Roger Ellingson, nor was it sent to him, received by him. And Ellingson already testified he should have got it in at that time.
Okay. I believe Mr. Leonard has an objection or a note or something.
I do not have an objection. I would join in the motion to admit this. I would note that evidentiary rules are relaxed in administrative hearings such as this, and a great deal of documents that are not have not been testified to by the author or recipient have been admitted in this proceeding to date.
Thank you. All right. The board will admit and give it the weight to.
Thank you, Your Honor. And you also discussed and testified regarding some concerns that you have about liability.
Yes.
What specifically about liability are you concerned about? Is it the someone getting hurt from the pipeline, or what is your specific concern?
Yeah, the pipeline is obviously carrying hazardous materials, and if we have a rupture, I would guess with the situation that is laid out here on this farm that we have, that there's no way for there not to be some, I would guess, deaths if it happens while people are home. So the problem is I don't have insurance for that. So these people could sue me for being irresponsible to allow a hazardous pipeline to be within that particular distance of their home. I would assume that's the way it would be, and I just can't get insurance for that. So, this is part of the ridiculousness, I think, that we're going to be forced to do this. Oh, by the way, you can't protect yourself. You just have to go along.
If there was an Iowa statute that said that you, your family, your employees were not responsible for damages to the pipeline in the normal course of your farm operation, would that address some of your concerns about liability?
Well, it would have to be proven to me.
Mr. Gerber, I'm really sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Move it around.
Yeah. I'm not sure it could be. Just here talking with me and you, it's kind of like a theoretical, and I guess you could theorize that all of my objections might theoretically be solved by something you say, but as it stands right now, that's not the case, and so I don't know what to say. I'm not protected right now.
Are you familiar with Iowa's one-call law, where you need to call before you dig?
Yes, I believe I am.
Okay. Are you aware that law does provide liability protection for the farmers?
No, I'm not.
All Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. No further questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Board Member Burns?
Thank you. No, Ms. Gruenhagen, I think you got my first question. Mr. Gerber, just quick, do you currently own any other land that has a pipeline on it?
No.
You do not. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
Sorry. Mr. Jorde?
Yes, thank you. So the Farm Bureau questions. So a letter from someone that has never testified here, I guess the CEO of this company said, who by the way has a financial relationship he refused to disclose with Summit and will make lots of money on this project if it goes through. So that letter says, these are all the great things we're going to do, but you don't put much stock in that, do you?
No. No, I don't.
And would it concern you more if that Ellingson company does not offer a warranty to the farmer for any of their work?
Oh, yes.
And what if they only warranty for 5 years with Summit, and Summit's their client? Does that give you a lot of grief?
No, it would have to be a lifetime warranty, lifetime of the land, actually.
And if Mr. Ellingson testified that he doesn't get paid for coming back, do you think he has little business incentive to come back year after year and do fixes if necessary?
No, not at all.
Now, in regards to one call, do you think that you should have to call one call every day that you are farming on your property in case something happens where you would damage the pipeline?
No, of course not.
And if there was a law in Iowa that said that if the farmer in the normal course did something to damage a pipeline, perhaps you're protected, do you want to have a fight with law firms on behalf of Summit or their insurer over what the definition of normal course is?
No, I would not.
Now, you talked a little bit about some properties, and I think the testimony was that there were you have some neighbors less than 1,000 feet from the route, but I just wanted to clarify, please, on the KMZ.
Did I say the route? Because what I meant was, as that CO2, let's say it happens right there at the creek, which you can't see, but it's right there in the corner. That is all downhill to those houses. So can you see that little house right there at the bottom of the screen? Yeah, that one. So I'm thinking that as that CO2 drains down there, and that's what it does, it's just like water, it's heavier than air, so it just drains down. That house, I think that house is less than where the drainage area would leave my property and cross the road and go into whoever owns to the west. So that's the less than 1,000 feet that I'm talking about. So if I said from the pipeline, I didn't mean from the pipeline. I meant from the drainage area once there is a rupture in the pipeline.
Very good. And I just wanted to clarify and request if we could tighten up that estimate and get a distance from that home to the proposed pipeline, please. So that says approximately 612 feet.
It's less than I thought.
And that's to the distance of the first homestead on the western side of your property, called near the northwest, well, the center part of your property on the west. Is that right?
That's right.
And then if we could go to the northeast corner, please, and just get a measurement on, now that you don't own that operation there?
No.
Okay, if we could just pull a distance from that home, please.
There are two houses there. The closest one, is that one right there.
And that looks like about 432 feet. Does that sound about right?
That sounds correct.
Yeah. And were those the neighbors that you were talking about that you would feel terrible if there was a pipeline placed on or near your land that they didn't have a say about, and they were injured or livestock
Yes, yeah, they're good friends, and we've known them for 40 years, 50 years, so.
And I don't suppose Summit has given you the plume modeling or risk analysis to tell you how safe they claim their pipeline is or to prove it?
No,
All right. And are you aware of, in your county, if emergency management have been provided any such data?
I'm not aware of that. As of 2 or 3 months ago when I asked, they had not.
All right, very good. Sir, I don't think I have anything further for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gerber. Appreciate it. Mr. Jorde, go ahead and call your next witness.
Thank you. Casey Showmaker?
And Mr. Jorde, while Casey's walking up, I know we only had an hour for lunch. Did you get any feel for